Hello everyone and welcome back to the video. Today I'm going to be talking about a very interesting point that I've been kind of talking about for a little while now, and it just turns out that Magnus Carlsen feels the exact same way about it in his field, which is chess. And I stumbled upon a 1-minute clip that he had with Joe Rogan on his podcast where he mentioned something very interesting that was basically the exact same thing that I've been saying on stream for the past 1 or 2 years now. Let me go ahead and show you guys the clip, and then I'll talk about how it's relevant to what Age of Empires 2 is going through at the moment. Let's go ahead and check it out.
Grandmaster at 12, was it?
13. So actually the record is 12, but most kids these days, honestly, they start so early. I was at a tournament in India a few months ago, and there's this guy who's like a 1600 rated player, and he's 3 years old. And like I'm seeing the games, like they're actually decent. And yeah, now there's this one kid from Argentina, like they call him the Messi of chess, who's going to become a grandmaster soon. I think he's only 10, so they're really playing early these days. But it's good to see though, because like information is so easily accessible these days. Like it takes a lot shorter time to get good at something.
Okay, so this is a really interesting point that I definitely want to expand on as well. So basically, Magnus Carlsen being basically the GOAT of chess, or at least one of the top 3 GOATs, current best player of the scene as well, and dominating for years and years, he got to being at a grandmaster level at 13 years old. But as he mentioned, nowadays, the kids coming up will easily beat this record, and it's already been broken. In fact, the record is at 12. I'm not sure who that is, but as you mentioned, there's a guy, in India right now who's 3 years old playing at a 1600 level, which is absolutely insane because I'm like really struggling to break 1800 on chess. I'm pretty sure I'm just not high enough IQ at this point, or maybe I just don't focus enough, but I can't get there. I'm hard stuck like 1700, 1750. So the fact that he's 3 years old and 1600 already is pretty preoccupying. Guy's just smarter than me. But anyways, back to the main topic of the video, the fact that the new generation, the new players are easily breaking the records and easily getting better at the game way faster. And I attribute this to 2 things. Number one, and this is the lesser point, but now that chess has already been established as some kind of like business / career that you can pursue more viably than it was something like 20 years ago, I think that players and communities around chess, teams, establishments are built to generate top players at an earlier age, because they recognize that the earlier you get in, the better your potential, for your career, and the longer the amount of time you have in your prime. But the other point, and the more interesting point in my opinion, is the fact that all the information is out there these days via the internet and via having, a scene that's well developed. And so players can get better much easier than they can if they had to do all of the problem solving and all of the theory work on their own, or if they had to, study up and use conventional methods like reading up books, taking classes, seeking coaching, all of which are way more time consuming and way harder to implement into your strategy and your game plan, rather than just, watching a quick video from the best in the world and soaking information that way. And the way I relate this to AoE 2 is basically in the exact same fashion. 13 years ago when I started, you basically had like no information out there. There was maximum something like 3 to 5 good videos on how to improve, and most of them were very beginner or very, specific, very situational, very general, nothing that's actually going in depth. It's just very bare bones how to play the game. You had no videos on, guides, no videos on build orders besides, a couple forum posts that you had to dig for. You just simply had no information. So when it comes to getting better at the game, you had your own experience, who you can talk to and who you have access to, and then just trial and error. And then, like I said, the 1 or 2, maybe up to 5 videos out there that could help you out. Now, the good part about the last 10-15 years of Age of Empires is that you can really see how far we've come. Nowadays, our scene has developed so much that you can easily access all the information you need to help you get better. Think of it, on my channel alone, you can go from a complete beginner to a 2000 ELO player and potentially beyond that. Like, you've got all the beginner guides on my channel, the how to beat the extreme AI guides, you've got, the videos detailing how to even play the game for the very beginners, and then you've got some of the Patreon exclusive content, some of the builders that I offer as well that can help elevate you to the next level. And all of this are at the tips of your fingers. You don't need to go out and talk to people. And not that it's an antisocial thing, but you don't need to go ahead and seek advice or seek, get your questions answered by someone else. All of it can be done by yourself. Independent learning, which I consider to be the best way to get better fast. To do things quickly is to learn independently so you can go at your own pace. And the best player, the best amongst us, are the ones that will learn at a very fast pace and also learn in a very deep way. They'll process information quickly, they'll learn quickly, but they also can take that very deep. Like they can definitely go in depth and still process information. They don't get kind of stuck at a surface level of information, and anything past that, they just don't process it. Those are the best amongst us. But I think even the average players around here that nowadays, just the average player that picks up a few videos will be so much stronger than the average player who's just going to try his best and figure it out. Like, think about it. 13 years ago, this is when I started. It's probably even worse 20 years ago, 25 years ago. But even when I started, if you want to get in as a casual player, you're not going to know what mods to take. You're not going to know, what builder. You don't even know what builders are. You don't even know what a strategy is. You're just going to go. You might have seen something. You might have tried something when you were young, and you'll stick with that. And so you pick up all of these bad habits. You won't have like a good rubric, a good game plan as far as how to even improve or where to even start. And so the whole process is just a lot more confusing and a lot slower. So as I mentioned, on my channel alone, you can get such a big spike of improvement and such a mass of information. But that's not even considering all of the other wonderful channels we have in the community that have guides and videos to help new players. Take, for example, guys like Spirit of the Law. Ton of really well done videos to help beginners improve. Take guys like Survivalists, who do coaching content and beginner friendly content to help people improve. And hey, I'll be making my own dedicated 2025 beginner guide in detail very soon, so stay tuned. I do want to have my own up-to-date version of those soon. But like I mentioned, there's a ton of other content creators out here that contribute to putting out this information to help our new players and our beginner players improve at the game. So what's the point of this? The point is, people ask me on stream all the time how to go about improving and how does one get better. And the point I want to make here is that all the information is literally out there. So it comes down to who wants it the most. And this is the one downside that, Magnus didn't mention. Probably he would agree with me if we had a conversation, but unfortunately I'm not Joe Rogan, so I can't sit across Magnus Carlsen yet. But I'm 1750chess.com elo. I'm coming up soon. And don't sleep on me. I'm like the 3-year-old from India. I have potential. But the one downside to this, back on topic now, is that everyone has access to this information. And this is the point that I don't really see discussed ever as a downside to having this information out there. Because now, although you can improve way faster at an individual level, 100%, you get the information out there, you just, see where to start, you have a good game plan, you just take it step by step and you improve. You can do it way faster. But it might actually be harder to improve relative to other players. Since everyone has access to the information, it might come down, and I think it will come down, to who's got that inner hunger available, who wants it the most. And the reality of it is, because, this is just a game, Age of Empires 2 at the end of the day is just a game. Becoming good at it is not the end all be all of life, and not everyone values getting good at a video game, especially Age of Empires, as much as the next guy. And so with all this information that's out there, it will come down to who wants it and who values getting better more than the next guy. Because you have, much more resources at your disposal, you can actually get better really fast. But if you don't get better really fast because you lack the time, you lack the motivation, you simply don't care, which is all, totally valid, totally fine. Unfortunately, you're going to be going up against, when you play, players that might have the time to process that information, might have the time to learn very quickly, and might have the time to improve their game at a rate corresponding to the amount of information out there. So it's actually competitively harder for you to play the game now in any kind of competitive form, like even ranked, because of how good your opponents will be and how good the competition is. And this can be applied at a pro level as well. If you look at the pro level, like 2-3 years ago, top 32, you went in, it was absolutely clear who was winning. As a player, I went in, I knew if I'm winning a round, like 90% chance if I'm winning or losing the round. And if I'm up against a better player, I know I'm losing, 90% chance. Nowadays, you're looking at the top 32 and you basically don't know who's going to win, because more and more people have access to the same amount of information, have access to the same amount of practice, and are bringing a much stronger level to the game. So you can observe this, surge of information and this surge of people just getting better at the highest level. But you can also observe it at all levels of the rank ladder. Take playing at 1000 to 1400 elo nowadays. 1400 elo nowadays are incredible at the game. Like they're not even like beginners or intermediate. They're like really solid players. Whereas 1400 5 years ago, I would say that's like a beginner or like an intermediate player, right? But obviously the competition has just gotten way better across the board because of how much information is out there. So overall, when it comes to getting better at AoE2 or at chess, any scene that is developed and has the information out there, and especially chess, I would argue, because they now have computers that can compute, all these moves, you can think very deeply to like 25, 30 moves in the opening. It's basically just going to come down to whoever invests the most amount of time in a smart way, who wants it the most, and who can really improve in a way that's strategic. Take the strategic element of Age of Empires or of the game, but also apply a good strategy to your improvement. Not just grinding 12 to 20 games a day, but actually, playing 3 to 4 games a day, thinking about it, referencing what you learned, in a video. You take it seriously, you have a proper game plan, and you can really improve fast nowadays. And so this comes back to a question once again, and I'll probably end the video on this on a personal note, because I did get asked this quite a lot recently on stream, and people would ask me, if I had to learn the game today compared to how I learned it 13 years ago, how fast would I be able to do it today compared to 13 years ago? Now, for you guys to know, 13 years ago when I first started, I was 12 years old, and I got to 2000 elo within 1 year, but it wasn't from scratch because I had played the game before casually versus AI versus, with my brothers, the campaigns. And so my level going into it was that I can beat the hardest AI on the base game, which is still horrible, by the way. So within a year, I went from beating the normal AI or the hardest AI to being 2000 elo on the ladder. And then after that, a year, I was 2400, which is basically top 10 on the ladder. But we did it only 1v1 Arabia Huns War, which is a lot easier than doing it right now 1v1 random civ, or even in tournaments, including mixed maps. So I was a top 10 player, but only on one specific game mode, and I would do horribly in tournaments. Now, the main holdback, or the main drawback, the main thing holding me back is what I meant to say, of that development that I had 13 years ago, was that I didn't have access to information. And so the way I would go about things is that I would play myself and I would watch pros play, because I did have access to pros playing the same game mode I was, one for Arabia, the main game mode. And so I'd watch them and I'd play myself, and I'd watch them and I'd play myself. But then I had all these questions, like when to get Thundering versus Ballistics, when to add TCs, that just never got answered. So the way I went about that, because I didn't have video guides available, is I would ask people. But the people I asked, sometimes they gave me detailed answers, sometimes they ignored me. And so I was left with guys, that were not pro players, that were not like the top of the top, but that were still kind enough to help me out. And I'll always be grateful for their help and support, because they definitely answered my questions and they guided me in the right way. And that was super important, because I just simply didn't have access to information besides hearing it from them. And so I can say for a fact that I had the hunger, I had the time since I was young and I had no life, and I had the eagerness to get better, not driven by money, by the way, not driven by any kind of fame, just driven by the sheer competitiveness and love for the game. And that is it. Today, you now have the ability to make a living off of AoE2, almost. You might need streaming or YouTube videos. Tournaments alone, we're not quite there, but you can at least earn some money from tournaments. So you have now an even added motivation to get better at the game, not just out of the love or the passion for the game or your competitive spirit. You also have an extra added motivation if you're interested in that. And you also have a lot of information out there, which was the main thing holding me back. So I got to top 10 level within 2 years, and then I started doing better in tournaments within 5. If I had to do it today, I believe I would do it in half the time. I think I would get to top 10 on the ladder within 1 year, and all I would need is the same equipment I use today and literally access to YouTube videos. And if I had a little bit extra, I would invest into, firstly, not to sell it out properly, but my Patreon. I think that's like #1 thing I would invest in, because of how small the price is per month compared to the payout. And if I had a little bit extra on top of that, I would look for coaching sessions, but I would leave that to the end, because I think that's the most expensive for how much you get in exchange. And instead, what I would do is I would ask questions to streamers on their chat. The easiest way to get your questions answered by literally the best players in the world. That is such a resource that I would have loved to have 13 years ago. So I would say, if I had to redo it all again, from now, starting from scratch with the same equipment I have today and the same resources, but just with more information out there, I think I'd do it in half the time. I'd probably be top 10 on the ladder on 1v1 random civ, no problem, within 1 year. And I would probably hit tournaments within 2-3 years, top 10 spots in tournaments, or top 16 within 2-3 years. That's what I would say for myself, and that's just a personal note to end off the video. So that's it, guys. I made this video completely randomly. I just stumbled upon this clip within literally the first 5 minutes of the podcast. I'm not even going to finish the podcast, by the way. I'm probably done watching it. To be honest with you, I don't think I'm gonna go back and finish it, maybe a few more minutes, but I just wanted to make a video about this because it's just really interesting for me to see that Magnus Carlsen is noticing the same patterns in chess as I'm noticing in Age of Empires. So is the conclusion that I'm the Magnus Carlsen of Age of Empires 2? No. The conclusion is that it's an interesting topic, and I noticed the same patterns in AoE2 compared to chess. And that was my take on the subject. I found it very interesting. In fact, I'm nerding all over it at the moment. But let me know your thoughts on the topic. Do you agree with me? Am I completely wrong? Do you see it a different way, or do you just have something to add? Let me know in the comments. I'm down to open up some discussion and see what you guys have to say. And yeah, let me know if you guys want to see more videos like this. I don't watch Joe Rogan often, so I don't know if I'll be able to get more content necessarily the same as this, but I do like discussion videos. So if you guys enjoy it, I would definitely be bringing you guys more like it. And yeah, if you guys want to check me out on Patreon for the exclusive content and tips and tricks and builders, check me out there. And if you guys want to check out my live streams, check me out on twitch.tv/Hera. Links to both in the description below. And as always, stay safe, enjoy the rest of your day, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.